Welcome to my virtual diner. Pull up a seat at the counter. Get comfortable. Most shows talk about the people. I talk to them. This is Real America with me, Bridget Fetisi. You guys, some quick housekeeping. If you want to be called on, you need to be on Zoom on camera and you need to virtually raise your hand by clicking the reactions button. If you aren't on Zoom and want to be a part of our virtual live audience right now or in the future, click the link in the description below to get the Zoom link below or go to twoway.tv/Bridget Zoom. Also, if you're with us on the Zoom, it's the same link every time. Put it in your calendar, save this link. We will use it for every show. That's where you come back and visit us. The voice of God you're hearing is Cousin Maggie. Say hi, Maggie.
Hello, everyone.
Many of you already know her. She's actually my cousin and co-producer. It would be weird if she wasn't. We make a lot of stuff together, like our shows Dumpster Fire and Walk-ins Welcome and all the other content you can find at fetisi.com. There is a huge thunderstorm happening right here, right now. So if you hear thunder or you're wondering what that is, that's what that is. Maggie will be monitoring the chat. If you have a question or would like to contribute to the conversation and you raise your hand, Maggie will message you privately to find out what you'd like to say. She's going to help make sure we stay on topic because I ramble and have ADHD. You're more likely to get called on if you let her know what you'd like to say. And we can't guarantee we're going to get to everyone who raises their hand, although we will do our very best. Everyone knows my number one rule: don't be a dick. So please don't act like your boomer relatives on Facebook, all right? Let's do this, guys. Tonight, we're talking Democrats. 6 months after Democrats lost to literally Hitler for the second time, consultants are out there spending oodles of money at fancy resorts, contemplating their party's path forward over filet mignon and fine wine. Meanwhile, their party is still in a freefall. In a recent NBC News poll, Democrats had a 27% approval, the weakest in surveys dating to 1990. The New York Times published an article this past week that was roundly mocked. 6 months later, Democrats are still searching for the path forward, in which they outline a hilarious $20 million plan, which aims to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online. It is codenamed SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan, and promises investment to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. As Andrew Yang said on X this week, Democrats paying consultants to learn how to talk to men is kind of the problem. The Democrats looking at men like Jane Goodall observing gorillas doesn't bode well for the future of the party. It's not hard to figure out what happened. You mean to tell me that calling all men toxic or worse, rapists, or saying that working out is a far-right obsession, or going on and on about toxic masculinity for a decade pushed men away? That's so weird. I can't imagine why. And it's not like people didn't warn you. People like me, repeatedly, since 2016, I've been sounding this alarm. So tonight, my guests and I will be giving you Democrats $20 million worth of free advice. You're welcome. In my November 2024 Spectator magazine column, How Democrats Bud Lighted Their Brand, a reference to when trans woman Dylan Mulvaney posed with custom cans of beer featuring her picture on social media and ignited a firestorm, I outline what I observed from working at Playboy and other men's magazines from 2015 to our current moment. Men were demonized, emasculated, blamed for all society's ills. Men were told to take a seat and shut up. It was socially acceptable and encouraged to be vicious to anyone with a penis, unless they were a woman with a penis. I knew Democrats had completely lost the plot when a men's magazine I wrote for, Mel Magazine, included this editor's note in a 2019 piece titled, "Can Men Sharing Their Experiences with Abortion Make It a Better Experience for Everyone?" I'll never forget this editor's note. It read, "For brevity's sake, we're using the word women to describe people who get pregnant and men to describe those who impregnate them. But people of all genders can get pregnant and get people pregnant, and this guide is intended to be a useful resource for them as well." That was when I knew it was done. I told my editor then they'd lost the plot and never heard from him again. Fair enough, but the magazine went under in 2021. Last October, when internal polling was showing what the rest of us already knew, the Democrats had a very serious man problem. While Donald Trump was doing the podcast bro circuit, the left-wing PAC Vote Save America put out a cringe-inducing video called Man Enough. Now we're going to show you that video in case you haven't seen it.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
I ain't afraid of bears. That's what bear hugs are for.
I'm not afraid of families. I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
It was roundly mocked and satirized, and the left hasn't just shed men. They've lost suburban moms. They've lost gay men, lesbians, working class voters of every race have drifted to the right. There have been dozens of versions of the exact same book published about how the left lost me over the last decade. So many versions of this book have been written, I didn't see the need to write my own, but it's my story too. Like so many people who voted for Trump, I did so as a protest vote. We aren't MAGA so much as politically homeless, another topic I've been writing about for years. In August of 2019, I wrote The Battle Cry of the Politically Homeless for Spectator, and it went viral. In September of 2019, I followed it with an open letter to the Democratic Party, all but begging them not to lose their minds. In that letter, I said, like it or not, I'm a canary in the coal mine. If I, a citizen of the Republic of California, have been abandoned in the center, how many people are there in Ohio or Florida or Wisconsin? I guarantee a lot more than the polls currently reflect and a lot more than Democrats can perceive from their liberal bubble. You can't bully people into voting the way you like, and then when they push back, imply they are racist and say, good riddance, not if you want to survive. And a year later, they would be marching through the streets screaming, defund the police while they set buildings on fire. So no one was really listening to anyone in that moment. In 2016, I lived in LA and I voted for Hillary. In 2020, still in LA, I didn't vote for anyone top of ticket. In 2024, I voted for Donald Trump. And if you had told 2015 Bridget that 2024 Bridget would be voting for pussy grabber in chief, I would have said, oh, wow, so I go crazy in the future. That's really sad. And maybe I did go crazy, but I didn't go crazy alone. And the Democrats aren't going to understand how they lost until they truly grapple with how they lost so many lifelong voters. It is apocalyptic here right now, guys. Today, we're doing our own focus group for the Democrats. Can they turn their brand around? Can they turn their brand around? Can they get men back? Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Trey Stewart and Art Tavana. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Quest. Democrats get mad when you use terms like real men, but that's part of their problem, and I'm going to say it. Real men get their prostates checked. They take care of themselves and pay attention to their health. With Quest Health's line of tests for men, you can order a multitude of men's health panel tests that keep you informed about your health. You can check your testosterone levels, get a prostate screening, a colorectal screening, super hot, or take their comprehensive men's health profile test for a more complete picture of your health and wellness. Purchase lab tests online. Visit a nearby Quest Diagnostics location for sample collection, no doctor's visit required, or get immediate results at home with at-home test kits. Your results are delivered online, quickly, and discreetly. These are lab quality tests, the same ones you'd be given at your doctor's office, so prioritize your health and visit questhealth.com today. Visit questhealth.com and use the discount code RealMay25 and get 20% off your purchase. That's questhealth.com, code RealMay25 for 20% off. There's a link in the description below. All right, let's get to it because I really just want to hear from you guys about all this. Our first guest is my friend Trey Stewart. He's a comedian and thought leader. And he also has a hilarious joke. He's just a very funny man in general. And I love him dearly. He's going to come on and talk to us as soon as I can see him.
Okay, sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to run the teleprompter and find Trey. There. No, that's Art. Can we bring up Trey, please?
You guys, the thunder here is crazy
There we
right
go.
now.
The whole
It
house
really
just shook.
rumbled our entire house. I'm like, should I be in a like weather shelter right now? I'm like, tra la la, as God strikes me down for talking about the Democrats. Hello, Trey. Welcome.
Hey,
Good
hey,
to
good to
see
be
you.
here. Okay, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. I mean, I had you on specifically because you and I have talked a lot about this, and I know you have a joke about being politically homeless.
Yeah. I think you mean politically unhoused.
Yes.
You don't want to get canceled. I don't know if we have any woke people
I
joining us.
mean, I don't, is canceling still a thing anymore? It doesn't feel like that's real.
No, thank God the Me Too era is over.
Yeah. How did you become, where did you start, Trey? How did you become like a politically homeless person? Were you always just give us a little insight into where you're coming from.
Pretty much, I'm from Detroit, and so I think my journey started with, I mean, when you're a young black kid in Detroit, it's kind of hard not to be an Obama guy, right? I mean, they
Mhm.
told me this guy was black and he cared about me, so I was like, okay, cool. And then, why not? It makes sense. But then, stuff happened like Flint, Michigan. I don't know if you remember, but they had their
Yeah.
water get poisoned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, I thought, okay, well, Obama, he's going to do something about this. And I remember he just flew to Flint, did nothing, but he did drink the water. So I think that made a lot of people feel better, but it didn't make me feel better. And I think that was the first crack in my like
Mm.
disillusionment with the Democrats.
And then were you a Bernie bro? Like, did you when you became disillusioned with the Democrats? I know we've talked about this before too. Were you a Bernie bro for a little bit?
Yeah. I guess I'm still a part of that, which it's a the Bernie to Trump pipeline
It's
is
real.
it's real and it's a big thing. I mean, Bernie went on, I don't know if you saw he went on Andrew Schultz
Yeah.
podcast, and they talked about that. Yeah, Schultz just told Bernie to his face, a lot of us supported you, and when you got screwed over by the DNC, instead of fighting back like we all wanted to see, he just kind of, was like, okay, I'll endorse Hillary Clinton, which
Mhm.
I think that's when I realized, okay, I can't really get emotionally involved. Even I still agree with a lot of the policies, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think people should go bankrupt from healthcare
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But as far as liking a guy, I just can't emotionally get involved with anybody at this point.
Do you think that is it the like horseshoe theory kind of Bernie to Trump pipeline? Is that populism? What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I think it is populism. I think it's
Mhm.
it's people on both sides felt like the establishment were not talking about the needs of the people, right? Like, and credit to Republicans, they let their populist candidate get the nomination, even though they didn't want to. And I
Right.
remember they were trying to stop Trump, but
Yeah.
ultimately, remember that? Yeah,
Yeah.
Trump was just taking them down one by one, which was great.
Even at the wasn't even at the Republican convention right before he got the nomination, wasn't there some kind protest and they were trying to stop it even then?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
vaguely remember. They did
yeah,
try,
they
you're
were. Yeah,
right.
they
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 were
tried,
not
but they
happy.
didn't. Credit to Republicans, they didn't. And then that's what made me disillusioned with the Democrats. It's like they suck so bad they would rather lose than let the guy who could say what you will, even if you disagree with Bernie's politics and you don't like the guy, he did represent populism on the left,
Right.
like 1,000%. And so instead of letting those two guys duke it out, they like pretty much just silenced the whole wing of their
Hmm.
own party. Like the progressives, they said, nope, you're not going to do it. And then AOC was a letdown. Like, you know what I mean? They're going around now with the rallies, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we supporting the same people who screwed you over? They
But
never
don't you
explained that.
but don't you think I have this joke like you don't drain the swamp drains you. I feel like even Elon
Yeah.
is confronting this reality right now. Like poor Elon, you really thought you could change things, didn't you? And now you're
Yeah.
real. But what's interesting to me too is I feel like the Republicans might run up against their own little Bernie moment where I think a lot of people
Mm.
did vote for for the change. They know that something needs to change. They know that we can't keep expanding the government. And if things don't change and they pretty much stay the same. And what don't you
Yeah,
think there will be a whole new wing of people coming from the right that are completely disillusioned? It's going to be
it's
the
a
Bernie
vicious
Bros being
cycle.
like, "Welcome, MAGA."
Yeah,
One of us, one of us.
exactly. It's a vicious cycle. That's why
Yeah.
it's funny when watching all these people, all of the MAGA people get happy about Trump because, in my experience, anytime you're happy about any politician, it's just a countdown until they let you down. Honestly, I mean, with the spending bill, Trump's big beautiful bill. You see that?
I love that it's called the Big Beautiful Bill because it is so Trump. It's so
Yeah,
Donald Trump. Yeah,
yeah,
there's been a lot. I feel like Elon's really resigned. You know, people are torching his Teslas. He put his name out there. He put a lot of money out there. He's got Doge out there making recommendations, and then they don't vote on really any of them to codify any of these recommendations at all. And
yeah.
then they go, "Hey, why is everyone mad at us? Like, hey, we need to do this for the people." And I saw Justin Amash kind of going after Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he was like, "You are one of these people."
Yeah.
And now you're going, "We're trying to find the guy that did this," looking around. Everyone in politics and media right now is wearing a banana costume, looking around, going, "We're trying to find the guy that did this."
Yeah,
You
that
guys.
great yeah, what's his name? Tim, what's his name?
Uh,
Robinson.
yeah. And
Yeah,
the
that great
meme.
meme.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
my
you're right.
favorite
Yeah,
meme.
they're like, we got to figure out who keeps increasing the debt. And it's like the politics. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's
Yeah.
you.
It's not
You
us.
keep right. We're not none of us are doing anything. We're just trying to, pay for eggs. But it's funny because you vote for Democrats, they don't really say they're going to handle the debt. Then you vote for Republicans who say we're going to handle the debt, and they increase the debt
Right.
systematically. Every Republican has
Every
a. So it's
and
just I don't
Democrat.
know. Yeah, I don't know what we're, but I don't even know what we're doing at this point.
They don't want us
You
to
know,
know this though. They
yeah,
don't no one wants us to they'd rather have everybody like MAGA, commies fighting against each other and not being like, "Hey, why are you mother effers increasing the debt no matter who it is in power every
yeah,
time, devaluing our money and enriching yourselves like no matter who it
exactly.
is." Do you think that a lot of people were upset about the kind of swap in, the just no choice again? They swapped in Kamala when Biden clearly was not capable of running. Do you
Oh
feel like
yeah,
people were mad about that?
yeah. I will because you can't. And again, this was covered like this was great because Schultz talked to Bernie to his face. So you don't really get to see Bernie or any of these liberals answer tough questions.
Yeah,
They kind of stick to themselves. Now they're starting to see that if they want to win elections, they have to step outside of their bubble, and go to what do they call it? The manosphere, the podcast brosphere, whatever
whatever
they
they
call
call
it.
it.
Yeah. But it's like you got to go there. And that was a question Andrew said was like, we haven't had a real election, what, since '08, since Obama.
Right.
And so people felt that. They felt it with Bernie twice. And then
Yeah.
so Kamala was like a smack in the face. It's like how also it doesn't make any sense. Why would you give us if let's say Donald Trump is a threat to democracy? That's what they
Right.
said. That's the premise. Let's say, okay, fine. If I agree with your premise, why would you put up the worst candidate ever? No, Kamala
Right.
couldn't even win her own state. That's who you go with?
As a man, do you if I'm allowed to call you that, do you have do you have what was your kind of feeling about the Democrats over the past decade? I talked about the video they put out there and a lot of the way that they talked about men. How are you feeling about things?
Well, I think they have lost men. It's very clear that they have. And not to assume my own gender, but as a man, I think I can. I think I can
How
speak
dare you
for.
assume your own gender?
I know. No, they've lost men, and I think that they. I've got a couple of ideas how they can get them back.
Okay,
You
let's hear
know.
it.
Well, a couple of my tips. First, they can start and identify what a man is because
Hmm.
they have very much. They have a lot of trouble trying to identify what gender people are. So I think if they can, that's the biggest hurdle. But once once we all can agree and identify on what a man is, we can move to step two, which I think would be embrace masculinity.
Hmm.
You know, like I mean, they throw the words like toxic masculinity, but it's like you cannot push people away, call them racist, call them toxic, and then wonder why we didn't vote for you. You know what I mean? It's like that doesn't work. It's like you're not gonna neg me into voting
Yeah.
for your candidate. It's like you have to like, and plus masculinity is not bad. Like we bring different things to the table, you know? Like everybody loves to is this can I curse on this or is this a family
Sure.
show?
No, no, no. I mean, it's family-ish, but we're cursing.
All right, I'll keep it PG-13, but everybody loves to you know to dismiss masculinity until it's time to change a tire.
Right.
It's like there are certain things that men bring to the table. And you know what I'm shocked at? I don't understand how they didn't get men with such manly candidates as Tim Walz. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah, that too. And David Hogg. They're like, you know what? We have a man problem, so we're gonna trot out Tim Walz and David Hogg.
The two, I mean, yeah, that's what I think of as a man. You ever notice how come when Dems put women at the top of the ticket, they always choose a weak man named Tim. Hillary did the same thing,
Oh,
right?
yeah, you're right.
What is that? Is it in the contract or something? Like, what was that other guy's? Tim, not Walz, Tim, I can't remember. But it was Tim.
I've eternally sunshined that entire election from my spotless mind.
People in the comments are saying Kane.
Tim Kaine.
Kane. Yeah,
Thank you,
exactly.
comments.
Yeah, Tim Kaine.
We can always count on the commentators to know the answer. They're faster than AI.
They are, yeah.
All right, we might, if you can hang out, I know you might have comedy tonight, so if you have to go, please leave. If you want to hang out, I'm sure some people might have questions for you. But before we go to our next guest, Art, I want to let people know where they can find you.
Oh, you can find me at Instagram, Trey Stewart, TRESTEWART1, and that's my Instagram. And then YouTube, the Trey Stewart program, which you were on. I'd love to have you back on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can hang out for a minute. Let's talk to
Let's
some real Americans.
We've got to talk to these real Americans.
Do you want to bring one person in before we go to Art, or do you want to go to Art first?
We can bring Art in, and then we will. They can both hang out.
Okay.
With us.
Art, I'm asking you to unmute here.
Art, Tavana, folks. It's so good to see you. Art, for those of you who don't know, and I don't know why you wouldn't because he's a legend. Hold on, I have to find my intro for you, which I wrote. So, okay. My next guest is Art Tavana, author, former columnist at Playboy. He was a colleague of mine, PhD in media studies and literature, and author of a very male-centric book on Guns N' Roses. Art, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to talk to you because you and I were at Playboy at that very weird time to be at Playboy at 2015. You know, Me Too started what, like 2013?
Something around then, 2014, really?
2013, 2014. And then it really got weird. And we were both there when they got rid of nudity because of like the male gaze. And all these male magazines were trying to grapple with their role and like all of this toxic masculinity, etc. What was your experience as a man in writing for Playboy at that time?
So Playboy, when I came in, was awesome because Cooper Hefner had this vision that he was going to restore the legacy, the brand, the identity, and he was going to make it for like a certain type of guy again, like Vice, but Playboy. Yeah. And it was awesome. And it was like a good moment, I think. And I was brought in to kind of help him, I think, with some of the content. But very quickly, it was obvious that the people who were like on the board, the gatekeepers, the sort of editors behind the scenes had a very different idea for where Playboy needed to go. And I think if you saw that New York Times article that came out like in 2017, 18, about how like woke Playboy was like redefining the brand and changing, it was like that was the end of, and I think the biggest, I think Playboy's a perfect microcosm of all this shit that's happening. And it's like men's interests are being like muted and subordinated and like pushed aside completely for like this sort of like catch-all for everyone branding that I think is completely ignoring like the interests of guys. And in that process, I think you're losing voters, you're losing people who give a shit. And the gatekeepers are all just like, it feels like, at least to me, and you tell me if I'm wrong, it feels like all the gatekeepers in the cultural institutions like magazines, academia, publishing, Hollywood, like even tech to some degree, are like rich, upper class, like white women,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
who voted for Hillary Clinton. Like it feels
Yeah.
like they're the ones making the choices. And so people who are not in that, like, who can't like fit that framework, are being completely like marginalized. And I think young men especially feel like they don't even belong. They're not part of the conversation. They have no like, and if they do speak up, and I've seen this in like workshops I've taught, I've seen this with like young boys. My friends all have young boys, and it's a coincidence, but like, and I see this with them. It's like if they speak up, they feel, and I work with young boys, young men, and I feel like they feel like they're going to lose like career opportunities. Like they're
Right.
not going to have a job one day if they say how they really feel. And I think that's one of the worst things, because creating like a repressed young male who feels isolated, angry,
Right.
frustrated, sexually frustrated, like emotionally frustrated, and has no outlet. Like Men's Health magazine doesn't even talk about like men's health anymore. Like
Right.
GQ is focused on like, like aesthetics that have nothing to do with like men. And like Playboy, I don't even know what's going on in Playboy. It might exist, but
I
like
think they're doing like a once a year thing now. Who knows?
it's over. It's over. And
Yeah.
like Vice, it exists. It's trying to be Vice again, but it's not. Like it's like the only men's content is like Barstool, and then you have
Hmm.
like the manosphere. And
Hmm.
it's like the vacuum is being filled by people that I don't even think are necessarily like in it maybe for the best reason. Sometimes I think they're monetizing an opportunity, but I think like it's bad because like there is no outlet for these young boys. So they're playing video games, and they're doing
Hmm.
like Second Life shit, and they're just doing like a mass. They're playing like these like open world games, and this is why the Democratic Party is like, let's advertise in video games because that's where they are. But the problem is you can't manufacture like authenticity.
Right.
You can't create your like liberal leftist Trump. Like it's not going to be Hassan Piker, because even if you listen to his podcast or his show, he talks about how he's using like anti-feminist rhetoric or like masculine coded aesthetics or whatever to lure like people into like leftist politics. He's not like, it's not real. It's a
Right.
performance, and I think people see through it.
Because do you think, I mean, I feel like, and unfortunately, I guess the counter argument would be like, oh no, men, like they haven't had enough time. But I don't think you needed to completely subjugate them in order to lift everybody else up. It seemed like when the pendulum swang, they're like, all right, guys, now it's like you said, they were marginalized, which is a hilarious thing to say about like white men, and they have been. And you by the way couldn't even say that. You couldn't even
No.
say, hey, maybe telling men to sit down and shut up and that they need to be more emotional, but they can't. I don't want to hear from you. I mean, I remember when I was writing for Playboy, it was so crazy. That's when I was like, whoa, we have a big problem, because I would ask men on Twitter, hey, I'm writing about whatever the topic was, balding. Write to me and let me know what you think. And I thought I'd get a couple of emails that were maybe 100 words. And I was getting 1,000-word essays from men telling me their whole story. I actually saw this as well with Letters to the Politically Homeless when I started that series, and I was asking people like, hey, how are you feeling about politics? They would write me their whole entire story of how they kind of ended up lost in the wilderness in politics after being either very red or very blue, and being a little bit lost. A lot of it was blue to center. What do you think about the political homelessness and all of that, as somebody who I forget, you don't have to tell me where you come from politically. It's not really important, but if you want to, you can add that color to the
Yeah.
discussion.
So I haven't voted at all in any form since like the Bush years, George W. years. I haven't voted for a president. I haven't voted locally. I'm just disengaged. I'm like the person they lost. I've never voted for a Democrat before.
Mm,
Previously, I voted for Republicans like in the early 2000s, and then I just didn't really care anymore. I was mostly a libertarian for that period of time, and then I kind of just became disengaged completely at like one point, because I feel like every group to me does not represent like my interests, which are middle class interests. I think they all represent like the tech bros, the feudalists, the sort of oligarchs, or like, and on the left, you have this like bizarre group of just rich kids and gatekeepers who want everything to be like their little bubble, and they're disconnected from reality completely. And so like they don't represent my interests. So like I don't have any like party. I'm like you. I'm politically homeless. The only difference is I like don't feel the need to align myself even with like anyone like at any point. Like I don't think Bernie's the right path forward. I don't think Trump is the right path forward. I don't even know what the right path is. But what I know is like people like me, middle class men, have been completely made to feel at least like they're not part of the discourse to shape where this country is going. And I think people like you have done a really good job of like talking to guys in some ways, better than even like the leftist like YouTubers that I watch and stuff who are not doing a good job. And I think big part of the problem is like the focus isn't on what we care about. We care about personal health. We care about mental health. We care about money. We care about jobs. We care about like, I don't know, like home improvement and shit. We care about like our worlds that are not being acknowledged. Like it's like where we don't even belong. And I think ultimately it's a bad electoral strategy. You've lost voters forever. They're not going to come back. And I think one of the worst things that's happening is this conscious attempt to bring them back. It never works. Like you can't build a coalition based on like really bad ads or Tim Walz, who can't relate to working class people at all. I don't even know what his background is, but he's not like, he doesn't code working class or whatever. Like he doesn't connect. And I think the only way to do that is to find someone authentically who just emerges out of nowhere the way Trump did. Like no one saw Trump coming. The Republicans certainly didn't want Trump to come do what he did. He like hijacked the entire party and swallowed it up like Godzilla. And I think the reason, and he did that authentically, he wasn't planning on like appealing to men. That wasn't his plan. I mean, he's like, you know, and it just worked. He just did. And the left needs that, but they have no idea how to do that. And so they never will, I don't think.
Well, it's funny. In Dumpster Fire, we were actually joking about this. And we were like, you have to just, like, the Democrats have to kind of, if you put it all in relationship advice, which is where we came from, you have to just ignore you've got to, it's like America's dating an asshole because they're kind of pussies. So if you're in that position, you've just got to kind of ignore, okay, go be with the asshole then and see how that works out. And I'll be here waiting for you when it all falls apart while they regroup, because it doesn't feel like there's any real message. And Trey, you can bring him back in too to jump in on this as well. Like, and then we'll start taking, I want to hear from, I don't know if are there hands up?
There are hands up.
Okay.
We've got a bunch of people.
Okay. So we'll let some people talk, because I think that they'd want to talk to you guys as well. Yeah, so it doesn't feel like they're like so one of the funniest things about that New York Times article that came out was that they did the most girly thing ever. They asked people to associate the different parties with animals. And for the right and Republicans, it was apex predators who take what they want, tigers, lions, and sharks. And for Democrats, it was slugs, sloths, and tortoises. I'm like, guys, this is like scorched earth. You should just start from scratch. What do you guys feel is the, core message that they're putting out right now?
Well, I don't think that they really have a message. You know, I mean, they have right now, what was the percentage? The approval rating is what, 27%? If I know Democrats, they're working tirelessly to get that number down to 0. I mean, they really a slug. I mean, that's being nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a worm is even, you know, better. Like snake, you know, it's like this. I don't try. And also to the point that you guys made earlier, they're not even trying to talk to men. I mean, you wonder why so many people, when they found Jordan Peterson, so many young men, why that was even attractive. They had never heard someone tell them to clean up their room.
No, they just called him a Nazi.
Yeah.
They just were like, that guy must be a Nazi. Obviously, men are listening to him.
No, he's just giving men structure, just a little bit of don't lie, clean up your room, be a good person. And young men was like, oh my God, let me put down the dope and clean up my room because, you know, I maybe I'm not a bad person. Maybe I just need a little, you know, guidance. Mental health, Democrats make mental health such a big thing, but they don't address men's mental health at all.
Yeah.
I think that's a big problem.
That's exactly what, like, and they completely ignore men's mental health. And if they acknowledge it, it's always like the sort of, it's toxic masculinity, it's their mass shooters. They don't ever think about the causes and the reasons why they're becoming even more isolated and more lonely and more fucked up. And it has to do like with the cultural pipelines and the people who are the gatekeepers who are controlling the discourse, and it makes them feel isolated. And like they've created, like Frankenstein created their own monster, which is like the Andrew Tates, the
Yeah.
Jordan Petersons and shit. Like these people, well, there is no one talking to these young boys, so they're going towards whatever they can
Right.
find. Like it's really sad.
That was something I noticed too, even in like do you want to bring someone in, Mag?
We can bring someone in.
Yeah.
Do you want to finish your point?
It was something I noticed a lot in the political, even in the letters to the politically homeless. Remember, Maggie and I would laugh because I'd be reading and it would be like, like I realized that they lied to me about, I became disillusioned. I realized that. And then it's like, and then now they're bringing kids in the tunnels under the Getty. And you're like, whoa, and they're QAnon. Because there isn't much of a stop in between. I realized the Democrats were lying to me, and now without any kind of real intervention, you just kind of end up you can get into some pretty dark spaces without. And I think that, like to your point about places like Andrew Tate, it's this the vacuum will be filled by something. And it might not always be healthy. But I want to hear I know there are a lot of people who want to talk.
Yes, we've got a bunch of people waiting. So please bear with us, guys. Be patient. I'm going to try and...
We're going to get you in.
All right. I'm going to bring up Craig Healy here first. Add you.
Hi, Craig.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
I just want to, so you can hear me. That's my question.
Yes.
I was like,
I'm sick of everyone asking, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wasn't sure if this was your attempt at comedy.
I'm joking. So I tend to believe that we all want to be led. Like we want someone to help us figure out what to do tomorrow, basically. And I highly desire a leader of any sort, whether it be a politician or whatever, a boss, I don't care, someone who has a vision for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily know what Donald Trump's vision is, but I'm pretty sure he has one.
Right.
And I'm not certain. I'm not certain anyone really would even agree with it if they knew what it was, but I'm pretty sure there's something there that he's working towards. So I think that's what we're missing from whatever would be his opponent, is if someone would actually get up and say, I believe in this, and we'll get there by doing these 4 things, then maybe we don't listen to them.
Right.
But they're all so self-serious, they can't do that.
Do you think they're afraid? I feel like one of the things that happens with Democrats too is that they become kind of victims of their own party, where there's a wing that's extremely radical, and they're like, hey, we're not going far enough. And then there's a wing that's saying, hey, we lost a lot of moderates, maybe we should talk to them. And the wing that is they end up kind of getting into this fight with one another, and then they become afraid of stepping on toes. We saw David Hogg recently. He was like, hey, guys just want to get laid and maybe drink some whiskey or whatever he said, because the other funny thing about Democrats is every time they talk about men, it's like in this very weird caricature way where it's like stereotypical, and then they just destroyed him. They're like, get out of here, get out. And can I ask you are you a Democrat, a conservative? Do you, if you're not comfortable sharing that, I don't care. No. It's irrelevant.
I'm a recovering libertarian.
Okay.
I dabbled in libertarianism in the early 21st century when I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, after college. And I think that's smaller government's the best idea there is. But we're not really getting that from anyone right now, so I can't really look for that. I don't think libertarians would even tell you that we can find anywhere right now, because I don't think we can. I voted for Kamala this most recent election because my wife begged me to. I wouldn't say beg; she asked me to nicely, so I did. And I want to stay married. So
yeah, so I love that.
I figured
that's true love, folks. Voting for Kamala is an act of true love.
I really thought Trump was going to win, honestly. I didn't think what my vote mattered. I live in New Jersey, so my vote really doesn't matter. For a Republican, at least, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I also actually live in one of the very few red regions of New Jersey, because I live in what I call the greater Bedminster area, where his Trump National is, New Jersey. We live like a few miles from that, basically.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, this area of New Jersey, as suburban as it is like the furthest way out you can get from Manhattan without travel in, basically. You can commute from here, but it would take a while, and you probably are wealthy for doing that. So I'm not commuting in, to give you an understanding. I'm just here. So anyhow, I wasn't worried my vote was being wasted because I was pretty sure Trump was going to win. I actually felt that way the last two elections. I'm not so sure how I felt about the 2000 election. That still doesn't make any sense to me, and I really would like to answer how come I forget the number of millions of more people who voted in that election than any previous election, and even in this election. Like we're talking like 100 million people voted in that election that haven't voted before or haven't voted since.
Which one?
That's really weird.
2000?
2000 election. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Try to get someone to reconcile that for you because they're not going to be able to.
Man.
And I'm not trying to, again, I'm not trying to make anything of it. I'm just trying to say that.
Got it.
I think there's enough angry people out there where someone like Trump makes us feel like we're being heard, which I think I am being heard. But I also think that he has an idea of what he wants, and I tend to agree with it.
Got it.
I mean, honestly, no one's stopping to ask the question, but if he gets what he wants from all this trade stuff, the entire world changes because no other country will be out there to buy our debt because we're going to be making all the stuff ourselves. We're not going to be buying anything from overseas. So no longer are we going to be selling our products to another country who are going to use that money to buy our debt from us so we can live the way we live. That's what ends up happening if he wins is the way he wants. What I think he wants, which who knows what he really wants. So anyway.
That's always the question.
But anyway, Bridget, I love you. And
love you too.
I'm glad you're doing this.
So cool. Thank you for coming.
I connected with you recently. I connected with you because of my realization of my wife when it was in perimenopause that no woman should ever be president because perimenopausal women or menopausal women in general probably shouldn't be near the middle of power. And I also wanted to tell you that Amy Alcon has a book coming out called Menopostal.
I know. I haven't. We're gonna have her on. We'll probably do a whole.
Okay, good.
We'll probably do a whole
I
show.
thought of you very much when I saw that.
Tell your wife to come on my show when I do it.
Yeah.
We'll probably do a whole episode, just a really sexy episode about perimenopause.
Can't wait. I'm sure all the men in the audience can't wait for that one.
Yeah, they all just got soft immediately.
So much.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Craig.
Craig.
I am going to bring up who's next here. Let's bring up Alan. If I can find Alan.
You guys, if you have questions, feel free to jump in too of the guests.
And we have, there are a bunch of people waiting, so
we'll go
just
quick.
gonna go through them here.
We're gonna speed date. This is our polycule. Hello.
Very excited to be here. Huge fan of yours, Bridget. You're hilarious. Love you.
Thank you. What's your name?
My name's Alan.
Alan.
Tallahassee, Florida. Just to answer the question, I voted for Trump. But the Democrats' take on masculinity is actually driving, calling masculinity toxic is driving young impressionable boys to idiots like Andrew Tate, who's a complete piece of garbage.
Yeah.
That's one of my takes is, they're sending men to the wrong role models.
Yeah.
I have a 18-year-old daughter. I've modeled what a man should be to her whole life. I open the door for her. I treat her with respect. Like, these are qualities of masculinity that no one really talks about, but it's protecting women. It's being chivalrous. It's standing, when you're walking with a woman on the sidewalk, you're walking. So if a car hits you, if a car swerves into you, it's going to hit you. These are like little things. And when we get insulted, like saying we're toxic for doing these things that, are the right thing to do, it's insulting. And it just drives everyone away. And that's pretty much all I want to say. And
so can I ask you, I heard about Andrew Tate for the first time because my husband was working with young adults, and in some cases, and it was the first time I had heard about him because the girls were coming in and saying, "Oh, all these guys are listening to Andrew Tate, and he's like, and they're all acting this way." Did your daughter have any experience with guys who were Tate fans?
Yeah, and they objectify women, objectify them in a horrible way, and the things I tried to teach my daughter was find a man who honors you, who respects you, treats you with dignity and respect. I mean, that's the biggest thing we can do as men for the women in our lives is
Right.
honor them and like guys like Andrew Tate are human pieces of garbage who just objectify women for their own gratification and treat them like, human real dolls.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. And, men like that are who should be, choked by me and my beard.
What do you
I
guys
agree.
Yeah. What do you guys think about let's bring someone else up while we chat about this. Thank you so much, Alan.
Thank you,
Appreciate you.
Bridget.
Thank you.
Guys, what do you guys think about or Art in particular? I'm curious about what you think about this the right wing kind of some of the influencers embrace of these people like Andrew Tate on the right.
I don't know if I think they're pulling back now because they're seeing how like ridiculous this person is.
I mean,
But
how could you not see that just from literally everything? Like vaguely gestures at everything.
his ascent, like the beginning of Andrew Tate, I remember how everyone was like, even the sort of the sort of centrists like Pierce Morgan were gravitating towards him a little bit in the beginning. And I think the reason for that was it was almost identical to Milo, which was that someone was coming out and saying really outrageous things about like the feminazis in our culture. And I think it felt like, whoa, this is something some people want to say but can't say. And he was saying it so ferociously and so boldly. And then very quickly was like, oh, wait, no. It's not just a criticism of like the sort of cultural control of like this third wave sort of feminist movement. It's like he's actually a piece of shit. So it took like 6 months for people to start seeing the videos, and that he's like basically like a foreign pimp or whatever. Like it took a while, but I think
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I think the embrace though was like he was saying things people were afraid to say, and he was making money doing it. But I really don't think that's like what I don't think young men just want like Maseratis, where the fuck he does, like all the like cigar and like whatever he's doing in his videos, these like bizarre videos he films. Like I don't think that's what young men want, but I think some do, and they're being elevated because he's the only one talking to them.
Yeah.
And it's fucking tragic, I think.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
That's
let's
really good.
bring in Alex Collins, who had something to say along the lines of how Dems can win back men.
Oh, we need some tips. Just
I'm
the
not sure.
tip.
I'm not sure if I have all the tips, but we'll see. One of my takes is so we saw kind of 2016 Hillary Clinton do a lot of pandering to her audience, and kind of that's been a through line for the last 8 years in Democrats. I don't know, at least maybe longer. I don't know if trying to pander to men is then the right move because you're still playing the same game.
Totally.
I guess my take, and I don't know how popular it is, but it's kind of like focusing on policy and actually delivering on that policy.
Mhm.
Because I feel like a lot of people, both men and women, have pulled away from the Democrats because this like, oh, they will say one thing, but then not deliver on it, or say they're helping people and just not deliver in any sort of way. You saw that from the pullback with like workers' unions and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
one of the sorry, go on.
No, maybe just focusing on policy and actually doing that. And maybe that's more of a long-term solution than trying to win in 2028, but that may be what's necessary.
I mean, it reminds me in recovery, I'm in recovery, and one of the very famous slogans in recovery that I love is attraction rather than promotion. They're just like, we're not going to go out and proselytize. We're not going to promote. We're not going to be these people who are running around being like, go be sober. If you just get sober and live as a sober person and you start to change your life and you have something that people want, a stable family, whatever, it will people who need the program or even people who don't will gravitate towards you. And I think that the Dems really could use some of that, because I agree, you're not gonna like manufacture manliness. Everyone's gonna see through it. Say what you want about Trump, and we've said this. Some of you have also already alluded to this. He might have been an asshole, but he was our asshole. Like, he's an authentic asshole. He really is. He's authentic to his core. And I think people, like many of you have said, they wanted leadership. They wanted to feel that. They wanted to feel like someone was being true, even if it was, a kind of crass bull in a china shop.
For sure. And like I also don't think maybe, I mean, you can't let go of the data though that young men kind of swung right in this last election.
Of course.
I'm 32. I'm definitely not old in any sort of way, but I also remember a time where you actually had to get on the internet, like dial up and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And so I do think there's a lot, maybe it's just a younger Gen Z thing where people grew up with phones in their hands and like literally on the internet, that is their life. And there's kind of this melding between real life and internet, and maybe it's just echo chambers that they get stuck in. And I do think that's where you get like the Tate fans and all of that stuff. But I don't want to tell people to touch grass because that seems counterproductive. But I do think that maybe there's like kind of a focusing on policy, and then also just kind of teaching people to like start thinking more realistically and get off the internet to a degree.
Yeah. I love that.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Let's try and bring up some more people here.
Isn't this so much fun, you guys?
I'm going to bring up, let's see.
I love this.
Anya had something to say. I'm going to bring her in.
I mean,
but this is actually not Anya, right? Oh, wait. Ask to unmute. There we go. Can you talk? We can't hear you.
I really like that apron.
Oh. All right. We'll come back to you guys and we'll see if we can get this figured out. All right, let's go with Philip. We're going to bring you in here.
Hey,
There we
Bridget.
go.
Hey, Maggie.
Hi.
Let me nerd out for a second.
Nerd away.
Well, first of all, I want to call out my wife. My wife of 38 years. She's a very special and unique person. She's part of the 0.5% of the US population that still watches MSNBC on TV. And she gave me an ultimatum and said, if I vote for Trump, she would leave me. And I called her bluff and she's still here. So,
I was going to ask you actually, when you said your wife of 38 years, I was going to be like, did she make you vote for Kamala too?
She tried. Anyway, we have a systemic problem. If you go back to Aristotle and you understand, Aristotle said that the whole reason for governments is to arbitrate the conflict between the masses and the elites, and that throughout history, the cycle just repeated itself over and over again as the elites took power and became corrupted and became oligarchs. The masses elevated a champion to take power back from the elites. They made him the king. The king then gave birth to a tyrant. The people went back to the elites after the tyrant was abusing them, and the cycle just continued.
Mm-hmm.
And
so Trump is our king.
Exactly. Founding fathers recognized this and put it into the Constitution. The elites are supposed to be represented by the Senate, and the people, the masses, are supposed to be represented by the House. And in Article 1, Section 2, Part 3 of the Constitution, they basically try to ensure that would happen by having elections every 2 years and having a ratio of representation of one congressman for every 30,000 people. With 30,000 in your district, you can get elected with grassroots campaigning. It's not difficult to win 15,001 votes in your district. But in 1929, we enacted the Permanent Apportionment Act, which capped the number of seats in the House at 435. And since then, the size of a congressional district has gone to 800,000, which you can't elect with grassroots politicking. You have to have advertising money. And so now the Senate represents the elites and the House represents the elites. And there's nobody representing the people. So in order for the Democrats to take back power, one thing they could do is they could say, hey, we're going to go back to the founding fathers. We're going to go back to Article 1, Section 2, Part 3. We are going to lift the cap of 435 on the House of Representatives, and we're going to make it possible for ordinary people to get elected to the House, and then they would control the purse strings. And now we've got a federal government as originally envisioned by the founding fathers, where you have a balance between the masses and the elites. And the elites aren't, through populism, trying to get their voices heard by electing a Donald Trump or whoever comes after him, because until this problem is fixed, the presidency is the only place where the people can express their interest. And it's very difficult, as we've seen with the big, beautiful bill, for the executive to actually make the changes that are necessary to get the federal government back where the founding fathers wanted it. I mean, the founding fathers said the federal government's not allowed to do anything that's not enumerated in this document. There's about 8 things that the federal government is supposed to be doing. And ensuring transgender rights is not one of those 8 things. Right. Those 8 things are the post office, national defense, international relations. And then on top of that, we passed the 10th Amendment that said everything that is not written down in this document is supposed to be the states, reserved to the states and the people. And the federal government's more than half of what they're doing is functionally unconstitutional.
Art, what do you think about that idea?
Which part?
Removing the cap.
I don't know. I don't really know that much about what would work at the government level. I think I don't think Trump is, though, going to be the voice of the people, or I don't think the executive branch is ultimately going to be in service of the people. I think they have a donor class that's dictating what the executive branch is ultimately saying and doing and raising and foregrounding. So I don't think I do agree that the House and the Senate have become elitist gatekeepers and they're not really looking out for the interests of the people in any way, but I don't think the executive branch has filled that vacuum. I think rhetorically that he's done a really good job branding himself in that way, in a really hilarious and funny kind of Mussolini-esque, goofy populism. But I think ultimately, and it works, it's super appealing as a cinematic character, but I think ultimately his interests are the donors that are funding his campaigns and his interests. That's just my personal beliefs.
It's going to be the way to win going forward, because there is no other channel for the people. That's why MAGA is such a big deal. I mean, it's the people standing up and saying, he's our champion. We're going to go and drain the swamp. I mean, swamp is synonymous for the elite control of the government. So,
and Philip, do you think he's draining the swamp?
No.
Yeah,
he can't.
That's the problem.
He brought in Elon. I mean, the system is so entrenched that really, that's why I say it's a systemic problem. If you lift the cap, you don't have to go to 11,000 congressmen, which is what one for 30,000 would be. You would literally have 11,000 congressmen. But right now we have 13,200 employees in the House. It's only 435 of them are elected.
Right.
So the budget wouldn't be different. You just have to make the people that got elected actually do the work that they're now, giving to their staff so they can go get on the phone to try raise money for the next election.
No, it's so true.
All right. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thanks.
I'm going to go back
Thank you, Philip.
to Anya here and see if we can. I'm asked you to unmute. And spotlight.
And by the way, if either Trey or Art, you guys got to run, just feel free to bounce. You don't have to.
Okay.
I don't want to hold you hostage if you've got comedy to do.
Talk for us, guys.
Can you hear us?
There we go. Yep.
Yay. Okay. Yeah, the Democrats, there's just so much stuff. They lost both of us, and it's just they lost Anya. Yeah, it's the censorship completely shutting up any voices that were remotely critical of them putting men in women's prisons or boys and girls sports or women's dorm rooms. I know of girls who had to leave college because they put a man in their dorm room, and that's just and then the Democrats would ostracize you for pointing out how crazy that is. And then the COVID stuff, I'm highly educated, and I'm a scientist, so I can look at the data myself. And they were just straight up lying about the vaccines and everything else. And yeah, so I mean, they would have to disavow a whole bunch of things to get us back. Like there's just so many, they say they're for women, but
I think one of the biggest things is the culture of like shutting people down and like controlling the conversation. It's like very controlling and like yeah, when you talk to people and you say something that is kind of outside the lines, you know, they'll educate you and it's very like yeah, it's like if you would like me to educate you, I can. And if you are a willing participant, then I will do it. And if you are not, then you know, like then you can go fuck off. You're a MAGA cultist.
This is, I mean, I like the way we found out about the trans stuff is they told us, you know, like go educate yourself. It's like, okay, now I know that they're literally putting men in women's prison cells. So I can never go back to being like, oh, we can just respect everybody's pronouns and whatever, because, you know, like that's where we started out. Like,
what do you think about this media tour too, where they're all a lot of the people in media are going around and saying, "Oh, sorry, we missed." You know, I think the Biden thing is another undercover. It's something I don't. It's weird. It gets a lot of attention, but I don't think people realize how much it pushed even more Democrats away this time around because it was another thing where you were just told to accept something is true that you could see with your own eyes was not true. What do you guys think about this media tour where they're coming out with books like Original Sin and they're going around and they're saying, "Oh, we just missed this." Do you guys buy that? What's your take on that?
We were both posting about Biden's decrepitude for years. And like people were arguing with us, and I had this friend who I had frequent political arguments with. Like he was still on the left, still a Dem, and he was insisting Biden was okay. And he's a small bit like he has his own business. And I was like, he would be, you wouldn't let him continue to run the family business. He doesn't belong in the presidency. And that was the thing that finally convinced him to be like, okay, Biden is too old. And then like a few weeks later, all these Democrats were like, oh, maybe Biden's going to step down. And it was just like, are you serious? So yeah, it's just from my perspective, it's they knew it. Like they had to have seen it. And then now they're I don't know, they're just trying to like it's such a weak effort, I think. Like the information they're putting out is good, but it's just like you could have done this. You were supposed to do this 4 or 5 years ago, you know, like before he ran.
Yeah, one of the big criticisms that I get and questions I get from people in my DMs and all over is people who are kind of ride or die Democrats, and they'll say, well, I'm not going to give up on all of my beliefs and vote, you know, becoming a Republican or I'm not going to like leave my beliefs behind. But I don't know that I feel like the Democrats have left their beliefs behind a little bit. What do you guys feel about that?
Do you want
the Democrats leaving their beliefs behind?
Well, do you ever get that criticism of, oh, so you're just going to give up on your party? Why not stay and fight for it? You know, why? My argument is that I did try. I tried to fight for it. I tried to speak out. I was told, and there was a lot of active pushing away from people who really didn't want to hear from me at all. And I don't really see either party representative of anything that I necessarily believe. I really voted for someone who I felt hopefully would be the least interfering in my life. Now, I could turn out to be wrong, but what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think if I'm like relating correctly to what you're saying, I think that the people that I talk to, it's like either they from the outset are not super tribally affiliated, in which case they're open to whatever.
Right.
But the vast majority of people who to this day identify as Democrats or as part of the left, it's just like an incredible level of obstinacy and like complete unwillingness to, it's just, I don't know, it's so tribalistic. It's so extremely tribalistic. And there's like, I don't know, it's like they are far less interested in actually mentally engaging with what's going on, and they just want to commit fully to whatever they're like their group, and they don't care if the group changes. They just want to be in the group.
And I have to say that I think the thing is that like we were Kennedy supporters, and then they pushed him out, and it's like, so by virtue of that they pushed us out too. And
Right.
then in general there's an issue with, you know, like if you're like all my family members and friends and stuff who've kind of cut me out of their lives, it's like they literally won't engage on the topic. So I can't be a part of a group that shunned me. Like it's just not an option. So I can't stay and fight for something when they literally plug their ears and go la 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 la, or you know, like
I will add at least, I mean, she interacts with a few more like liberal men who are, or you know, she did until he was like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Anyway, but yeah, but the vast majority of people I've been interacting with are women on this, and yeah, it's just like they're just they want it's like they want it to be simple. They don't really want to think about it too much. They want to be aligned with like the good people who will take care of people and do the right thing. And they have been told on like at some point have been convinced that Democrats are those people. They're the good people. And so they have absolutely no interest in entertaining any like they don't want to accept that they might not be the good people, and they don't want to look at any possibility outside of the binary. Or
yeah, that's exactly like they don't. That's the main thing. They're dedicated to believing that they are the good people, and if they look under the hood and they find out that that's not actually what's powering them, or that they have to fix something, then it all like they don't want to open the hood because they don't want to find out that that's
yeah, they're like,
case.
no.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you guys.
All right, I think we have time for like one more. We're running a little late, but all right, let's bring up Max, who's been waiting very patiently. And I'm sorry, guys, we're not going to be able to get to everyone, but here we go.
I think the transgender thing really hurt the liberals the most. Like, because the party used to be serious. Like when Obama was president, he cared about, you know, healthcare, the recession, what else? You know, the war in Iraq and stuff. And then I don't know what happened, but like in the mid 2010s, everyone just became obsessed with gender. And it's like, what? Like, what? Where did this come from? Like, this is the hill you're going to die on? Like, men who look like women and women that look like men?
How do you think that I mean, once you kind of go down that path, how do you think they divorce themselves from that, though? I mean, and Trey and Art, if you have any ideas too, I don't think you can. How do you distance yourself?
I think they just have to start ignoring them. I don't know, like just get away from the topic, stop talking about it. I guess I don't know.
Well, I think it's intentional. You know what I mean? Like there's the identity politics. They do that. The Democrats, it seems like they focus on identity to shift focus away from policy. Going back to my man who was like, everything's about policy. They don't want to talk about policy. So they want to talk about gay, trans, handicapped people. You know what I mean? Like they thought.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like I remember like a few years ago, I saw a picture of like a black Santa Claus in a wheelchair. I'm like, who is this for? Like, who's gonna buy that?
Wait, how is he even getting down the chimney? What? Man, DEI has gone too far. DEI Santa Claus?
God. This is crazy.
So I think like what you're speaking to something that actually I think the Democrats are listening. Like I think Gavin McInnes and you see Buttigieg, they're pushing back
or Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom. They're pushing away from some of the identity politics. Like they're actually passing policies and like trying to distance themselves from the last 10 years. But the problem is there's been 10 years of an aggressive push towards identity being the centerpiece of the whole party. And now it just seems inauthentic. It seems like they're just pivoting in order to save themselves from a political disaster. Doesn't seem real, and nobody's like falling for it. And that's the problem. And I think it's going to take years of being like aggressive about focusing on the economy, frankly, and like focusing on things that matter to middle class people. to change the perception of that they're identity politics party. It's not going to happen in like 4 years.
Yeah.
I think Matt Walsh's What is a Woman documentary. Did you see that?
No, but I'm aware of it.
I think that did a lot of damage because like I showed that to my parents and my brother, and their like jaw was like dropped to the floor. Like they couldn't believe like this was going on. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have any, Max, quickly, what's your biggest tip for them to kind of recover? They need to go into recovery. We need to write them a 12-step program. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write them a 12-step program.
Yeah, I don't know what. Well, I've always been a Republican, so I'm kind of happy where the party's at right now.
You have been? I couldn't tell.
Like
from
double
the
down.
here.
That's my tip.
Yeah.
Double down on the trans stuff.
Like, I'm surprised there's not an AR-15 on the wall behind you.
When I heard the news recently that they're paying like $20 million to figure out how to appeal to men, I'm like, this is great. I don't even have to say anything. It's like they could just try to figure it out themselves and just lose.
It's like the old thing, like when your enemy is making a mistake or whatever.
Don't even do
anything.
Just like I keep making those Kamala Harris ads. Those are great.
Kamala spent $1 billion to lose, so that's what they do.
Wow,
we always forget that too. It's amazing the things I've blacked. Somebody was posting because we're about 5 years away from the George Floyd summer, and somebody was posting that David Guetta. Do you remember when he did the like DJ thing on the top of the roof in New York City? It was iconic. We're gonna do a whole. I want to do a whole episode where we go back and remember like the craziest parts of that
COVID.
summer. Because we memory hold a lot of it.
Was crazy. I keep seeing that clip of that guy who's crying at his
that's
funeral,
been making the rounds. Yeah,
with the mask. I'm just like, that's ridiculous. This
there
is
was
over.
Do you guys think that Trump should pardon the guy that
Chauvin
killed? Yeah, Chauvin. Is that a good move for Trump?
No, I don't think it's a good move. I think it would give liberals an excuse to burn down more cities.
I'm waiting.
I wouldn't do it.
I need a new pair of Jordans.
I wouldn't do it. Like, I understand the argument, but I think it's a terrible idea.
Well, Max, thank you for waiting.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who has like an absolute burning desire? Do we got to get out of here?
I mean, it's.
Can you ask production? We have like production, guys.
I know we're
so
whole
fancy.
team. I said, "Can we go to 7:10?" They said, "Sure." So, we're at that point. Let's see.
I just want to make sure there's no one with a burning desire.
I mean, there's always going to be people with burning desires left in the waiting room. Sorry.
This is so fun, you guys. Thank you so much, Art Tavana. Where can we find you?
Twitter, Art Tavana, or on Amazon, you can find my book on Guns N' Roses if you give a shit about Guns N' Roses.
Everybody gives a shit about Guns N' Roses. And if they don't, they're no friends of ours.
That's right.
Art, thank you so much for your insight. You're brilliant as always. And Trey, you mentioned again, he's
we
gone.
Just lost Trey.
He bounced. Trey's like, I'm out. Peace.
All right, do you want your wrap out segment here?
Oh, yeah, sure. You guys.
There we go.
Amazing. Thank you to our guests, Trey and Art. Thank you to those of you who showed up and asked questions. Thank you to Two Way and their amazing team. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Bridget.
This is so much fun. I could do this all night, honestly. And thank you, Quest, for sponsoring this show. Visit questhealth.com and use discount code RealMay25 and get 20% off your purchase. That's questhealth.com, code RealMay25 for 20% off. Join us next Wednesday, June 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're with us on the Zoom, it's the same link every time. Put it in your calendar, save it. We will use it for every show. It's your little diner link, bar, whatever. And thanks for getting real with me, guys. I'm Bridget Fetisi. Don't forget to tip your waitress.